Let's look at cylinders in perspective. They're a special case. We're going to use some of the rules of cylinders and how their ellipse ends relate to the eye level to put these together. But if we want them to be perspective accurate, we need to think of a few things. And as always with me, everything in perspective that I try to draw lives inside of a box as I imagine it. So my cylinder is no different. It's going to live inside of a box. So what I'm going to do is draw the box for the cylinder first. Now the first cylinder is going to be standing up. We'll call it upright. Upright cylinder. An upright cylinder has an axis that is perfectly vertical to the ground plane if you're in 1 and 2 point perspective. Right? That changes when you get to 3 point perspective and curved perspectives. But for an upright cylinder sitting on the ground, for our purposes here, it's going to have an axis that's vertical. So I'm going to define the width. That's how wide I want my cylinder to be. I'm going to define the height. That's how tall I want my cylinder to be. Now I'm going to find a vanishing point that I can build my rectangle, my prism, rectangular prism off of. So I'm going to do the dividing trick lightly here because I'm going to have some more lines here in a minute. So there's my center. So I'm going to go through the center, straight vertical to the horizon, to the eye level. So that is the vanishing point for my upright cylinder. Because cylinders are perfectly round, they're perfectly symmetrical from all sides, their vanishing point for an upright cylinder can always just be right behind them on the horizon. Because they don't really recede, the edges don't necessarily recede to anything. All right, if I want to, I can clean up those lines that I just made, that X. I don't think I am going to need to, so I'm going to intuitively put a bottom edge to this. That's my ground plane of the cylinder. I'm going to go off the top corner as well. Now, how do I find the back edge up here? What I need to do is come off of this corner and go perfectly vertical. So I'm looking through my transparent ruler here, making sure my vertical is perfect. Up with a vertical, that's the top of this one. And up with a vertical here. That's the top of this one, and those should be perfectly horizontal from each other. So there's my top plane. I'll erase some of these lines to really clarify what's going on here. That was the X that I found at the center so I could get my vanishing point. That's an orthogonal coming off the back. These are just the sides of the box that the cylinder lives in. I don't need them really anymore because the cylinder is going to define its own edges. So what I'm really left with here is a top plane and a bottom plane for that cylinder. Okay. How do I put my ellipses in for my cylinder ends? I can use this same trick of dividing to find the dead center. I can do the same up here. Find the dead center. That should be straight below the vanishing point. I'm going to just run a line through those, and I'm going to run a side line in as well for a horizontal. Okay, as we can see, this ellipse is going to be really, really thin because it's close to the eye level. This one's going to be a lot wider because it's farther away from the eye level. My ellipse needs to touch this point, this point, this point, and this point on its way around, as well up here, this point, this point, this point, and this point. So how I'm going to do that, what I like to do is kind of ghost it in to guide me. And this one's going to be, that one's going to be super thin. So I'm going to get this bottom one fleshed out, coming from point to point to point. Ooh, too high. I want to maintain that curve all the way around. And then up top here, point, point. Now all I need to do is connect this point to that point, the edge of the cylinder, this edge of the cylinder. And there's my upright cylinder. This ellipse you can see wobbles down on the edge here. I got a little bit out of my height, my ellipse height there. So it's worth taking the time to do some cleanup and make sure that you at least have some curve information that stays within the bounds of that rectangle, even though it's really, really thin, close to the eye level. Remember, at the eye level, they just become flat, and then they open up down away from the eye level like this. If this isn't a hollow ellipse, then I can erase everything that's inside here. Firm up the ground, like some shadowy contact point. This ellipse kind of wobbles out of its bounds right there too, so it's something to be careful. The more careful you are about that, the better it's going to come off. Okay, that was an upright cylinder.